All right. Thank you for staying with us so late. I am now delighted to introduce Véronique Aubouy, who flew in from Paris and who will try to sum up Proust's entire work In Search of Lost Time in only 1 hour. So if you really don't have time to read him, you can pretend that you have. Véronique Aubouy is a filmmaker and an artist. She creates a body of work which is strongly influenced by literature and music, and which includes not only documentary and fiction films, but also performance art, photography, and video installations. Since 1993, she's been working on a recorded reading of Marcel Proust's In Search of Lost Time by people of all walks of life. At this point, her film, Proust Read, runs 151 hours, 43 minutes, and 14 seconds. Véronique, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. And thank you I'm very happy to be here. And I want to thank Louise, too, who isn't here today. Well, I think you've said everything. I'm a Proust fan for many years, for more than 30 years. And I read it when I was in South America. And since then, that book has never left me. I've always kept it with me. So I'm going to try to summarize it in 1 hour. So, yes, before. Okay. Are you ready? Yeah. Okay. Top chrono. The first thing you have to know about me is that I am a man. I am in my bed. I sleep. I wake up. I am between two consciousnesses. Sometimes I fall asleep so fast that I don't even have time to know that I'm falling asleep. And it is just the thought that I have to put down my book and blow my light, which wakes me up. I haven't ceased while I was sleeping to form reflections about what I've been reading. But these reflections have taken a rather peculiar turn. I have the feeling that I am myself the subject of the book I'm reading. I am a church, I am a quartet, the rivalry between François I and Charles Quint. I fall asleep and I meet deep inside of me my primitive self. I have the sense of existence, just as it may quiver in the depth of an animal. Sometimes, as Eve was born from one of Adam's ribs, a woman is born from a cramped position of my thigh. The pleasure I'm going to enjoy, I imagine she's the one who is giving it to me. And when I wake up, my cheeks are still warm with her kisses. Okay, I'm a little boy in Combray. Right in the afternoon, my bedroom becomes the painful and fixed focus of my preoccupations. That's because I cannot sleep without Mama's kiss. And I think of it all the time. I try to imagine. I look at her face, and I look at the place where I am going to kiss her for this goodnight kiss, because this goodnight kiss is the only way I can fall asleep, really, you know. I cannot stay alone in the dark at night without her kiss. So I try during the day to imagine where I would put my lips and one night, I remember, I was quite a little boy. I remember Monsieur Swann, a neighbor, came unexpectedly and stayed at dinner. We were in Combray, so that's the house, the country house of my aunt Léonie, and Papa, Mama, Grandma, Grandpa, my two aunts were there. And so everybody was quite happy that Mr. Swann was coming, but I was not happy because I knew that Mama would never come up in the room to give me my kiss. And that is exactly what happened. At 7 o'clock, Daddy says, okay, now you go to bed. And I had to climb up that staircase, hated staircase, which exhales that odor of varnish, where exactly that kind of sorrow has fixated forever. In my room, I had to close the curtains. I had to dig my own grave and to put on the shroud of my nightshirt. But that night, although I was quite a little boy, I decided that I would not go to sleep without Mama's kiss. So I waited, and I stayed awoken, and at midnight, when Mr. Swann went away, I posted myself in the staircase, and I waited, and I heard Mama and Papa coming up, and I heard Papa saying, well, well, if you wish, my dear, let us go to bed, ha, 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 ha. If you wish, my darling, although I'm not tired, not in the least tired, probably it's that coffee I scream that has kept me up way until midnight. Mama, come and kiss me. Mama, come and kiss me. What, my child, go and hide. If your father sees you, he'll be very angry. I'm done for. Just go sleep with him. I don't need anything. But, my darling, we can't give this child such a bad habit. It is not a matter of habit. Can't you see the little one is full of grief? We're not his tormentors. I'm not so nervous as both of you. I'm off to bed. So Mama spent the night with me. It was their first abdication. It was the silent acceptance of my abnormal nervous state. And I consider that night the date of the decline of my health and my will, because today I haven't yet written my book. So in Combray, there were two walks. So either you went through the Swann's Way, out of the garden, or the Guermantes Way. Those two ways, those two walks, were absolutely incompatible. So you would never go through Swann and come back through Combray. Impossible. You had to choose. It's just like those two social spheres. They would never mix. So one day I go on the Swann's Way. There is a wonderful hawthorn hedge, which borders Mr. Swann's park. And I was there standing, looking at those roses, thousands of roses. They are so beautiful. So they look like things you can eat, like their color. The color is like when they let me crush strawberries in cream, so white and red. And suddenly I feel observed, and in the back of the hawthorn, I see a young girl. She has pink freckles and two braids, fair hair, and she looks at me not very nicely. She has a gardening spade in her hand, and someone calls her, Gilberte. This name comes to me as a talisman. And she goes, but before she goes, she hands to me, she sketches her hand to me in a strange gesture with the middle finger, the kind of gesture probably indecent. But I fall in love right away. So one day, Daddy says, tomorrow, if the weather holds, because the Guermantes Way is a very long walk, we will go the Guermantes Way. And the Guermantes Way, I must say it's my favorite way, because you have all along the course of the Vivonne with you. And in the end, there is this castle, the castle of the Duke and the Duchess of Guermantes. We never been so far. It's like the North Pole or the Equator, you know, it's kind of abstraction. But I imagine that the Duchess falls in love with me, and she invites me to show me the vivid waters of her pond in the castle, and we fish the trout together, and she takes me by the hand, and she asks me to read her my poems. That's the point. I have to write those poems in case that scene could happen. So I sit down and I say, okay, I have to find something with a philosophical value for the Duchess. And I try to write, but it's all blank, you know. I don't see anything. I am empty. So I give up forever the idea that I will be a writer, because I think I have probably no talent, or maybe some mental illness, which merci. Another day, but another day, we have been very far with Daddy, and the doctor Persepied brings us back in his carriage. And you know, the landscape is totally flat in Combray, and you have the churches, the steeples of the churches, they represent the cities. They say, I am Combray, I am, and this time we have two steeples of Martinville and one steeple of Vieuxvicq, and the sun was setting in the back, and I saw them like they were playing together, so first apart and then approaching, superposing, parting again. I think this is a wonderful thing to see, and I have this special pleasure. So I want to put words on that pleasure, and I asked the Dr. Persepied some paper, and you know, they always have, the doctors, and I write in the carriage my first text. And when I arrive in Combray, I jump out of the carriage, and I'm so happy. I see the basket of eggs which the doctor brings back from the farm, and I say, and I have the feeling that I myself have laid an egg. I must tell you more about Monsieur Swann. Monsieur Swann, so our neighbor, the inconscient author of my sufferings when I was small. Monsieur Swann, long before I was born, he was a very cultivated man. He would go in the world, and once he met, well, a friend of his told him about a courtisane. Her name was Odette de Crécy, and he said, it will be easy for you to seduce her. So Swann met her, but she was not his type of girl at all. Even he had a physical repulsion towards her. You know, she had a skin which was very thin. She had the cheeks very prominent, and also her eyes were so big that they seemed they were falling about their own weights. So it made her look always either tired or bad humor, in a bad humor. But one day, he sees reproduction of the Zephora by Botticelli. And he sees Odette. It's incredible, because it's her, exactly. So the novelty of the reference made him fall in love. He had the feeling he had a Florentine masterpiece right by him. And so she took him to les Verdurins, a couple of very rich bourgeois who had a very exclusive little salon. Always the same people were there, a few, really a few. And they hated the other world, and they hated the other salons, the boring salons. And so she took him there, and he was very happy to be there, because the first evening, the pianist played, actually, Mr. Verdurin said to his wife, why doesn't he play a little sonata? Oh, no, not my sonata. If you know very well, if he plays that sonata tomorrow, I will have a headache and there will be nobody anymore. So they played the music, and he was very happy, Swann, because a few months ago, in another party, he had heard a music played by the piano and the violin. And this music, at first, had given him he had appreciated, the material quality of the sound which the instruments were giving, Those instruments, the violin, for instance, which has been played so much by his music, that he is like very soft. And at a certain moment, something else, he resented something else, a really very strong pleasure. And this was brought to him by a little musical phrase, and held by the violin. And this little phrase gives him the kind of pleasure which expounds your soul, exactly like in the evening in your garden, the smell of the roses after the rain. It dilates your nostrils. And he was very happy, because he had the feeling for the first time in his life that he was seeing music as if it was architecture, design, very, very clearly. And so he wanted to know the name of his fair unknown, but the musicers had gone. So he went back that night having the feeling of as if he had come across a very beautiful, handsome woman, and he had fallen in love with her, but he would never see her again, and he would never know her name. And that night at the Verdurin, after a few minutes of music, he heard the little phrase coming to him. He recognized her, and he asked for her name, and they say it's the Andante of the Sonata by Vinteuil. And so now he knows he can have her as often as he wants at home to learn its secret and its language. Voilà. I'm talking to you about Swann because Swann has a daughter, Gilberte, as you know. And when I am a teenager, I play with her in the Champs-Élysées in Paris. We play together. And one evening, I'm invited at Swann's, at Mr. and Mrs. Swann's, for dinner. And I know I am going to meet Bergotte. Bergotte, he's a writer. I have read all his books when I was a little boy. It was in Combray, I remember. It was my friend Bloch who told me, oh, you should read all his books. So I did it. And I was so moved by his books, because I had the feeling I was crying in the arms of a regained father. It had something to do with his sentences. They were like a melodic flow with archaic expressions, such as you could find in the countries, you know, but also with very simple popular expressions. And really, and anyway, one evening, I go to Madame Swann and I meet Bergotte. So when they introduced him to me, it's like a gunshot, his name, and I incline myself, and when I look up, I see a young man, thick-set, with peering eyes, red nose in the form of a snail shell, and a black goatee, little black goatee. So, all the Bergotte I have elaborated drop after drop, like a stalactite, with the transparent beauty of his books. I don't know what to do with that Bergotte anymore, because the other one is more real. You know, my problem, I'm very often disappointed. I think I have too much expectations. I think I have too much imagination, and reality never reaches my expectations. That's my problem. So, when I'm a teenager, that's the time where I want to be a writer. And I want to be a writer, and my father wants me to have a real profession. For instance, diplomat.
20 minutes.
20 minutes. So he invites a diplomat friend of his, Monsieur le Marquis de Norpois, at dinner, at home. And for this occasion, Françoise, the Michelangelo of our kitchen. Alors, Françoise, who is she? Very fast. Françoise, I know her since I was very little, because she was my Aunt Léonie's cook in Combray. And when my Aunt Léonie died, we brought Françoise to Paris with us. So she lives with us. And at that night, so she cooked her famous jelly beef. And for that, she went to the farmer's market in Paris, and she got the best cuts of beef, exactly as the master did in the mountains of Carrara, when he picked up the big, very beautiful marble pieces for the monument to Julius II. And I must say, Mr. de Norpois was quite happy with the jelly beef, asked a second time for it, and he also said, I would be very pleased to test your vatel with, for instance, a bœuf stroganoff. Voilà. So, Monsieur de Norpois, when you speak to him, he preserves facial immobility as complete as if you were addressing to a bust, antique bust in a museum. So there is nothing, you cannot know what kind of impression you have produced on him. And when his voice comes out, it's all the more impressive that you have no idea, even if he has listened to you. His voice comes out like the auctioneer's hammer or a Greek oracle. So my father asked me to read to him the text about the steeples in Martainville. So I do it, and Monsieur de Norpois has no reaction at all. But later in the dîner, he says, you want to be a writer and a diplomat, but you may do both together. It's very possible. There is this case of the son of a friend of mine. He has quite the same symptoms as you, as if he were talking about rheumatism. He wrote 2 years ago a very interesting book about the sense of infinity on the western shores of Lake Victoria in Africa. And he was very successful. And also, this year, he has produced a little pamphlet about the repeating rifle in Bulgarian army. I think you should go and visit him. He will give you some piece of advice. And these sessions give me such a deadly anguish, you know, as if I were going tomorrow to embark for the first time on a ship as a new small sailor. Voilà. Okay, so when I was little, I've always had this bad health, and so they never let me go to the theater, and they never let me go traveling. But finally, I go to Baalbek with my grandmother, and I take the train, and the train, you know, it's a night train to go to Baalbek. It's a night train, and in the morning, the train stops in a little station, and it's dawn, and I see a young Meg lady. She comes to visit us, and her face is rosier than the sky. And she approaches, and I have the feeling that I could spend all my life with her. It would be so exquisite to go with her every morning to the car and to the train. She would learn, she would teach me the delights of rustical life. But the train goes on, and I arrive in Baalbek. Baalbek, it's a grand hotel, such as we have never seen before. They are very new, these hotels. You know, they have very big windows, and you can see the sea everywhere. My problem, I always have, since I was little, I have always had this problem of falling asleep. And I must say that I cannot bear to be in a new room. It's always a problem. And when I come in Baalbek, this new room, I feel like, you know, there is a mirror here, and there is also a clock which talks as if I was not here in a foreign language. And the smell of vetiver. So I feel like I am surrounded by enemies, and I cannot sleep. So my grandmother, she knows me, and she's so kind to me. So she says to me, "Don't worry, my little bunny. Tonight, if you don't feel well, just knock 3 times on this wall. My bed is right there behind. I will come." And one night I did knock after hesitating a long time, and I finally knocked because I didn't feel well. And I heard 3 knocks from her. Boom, boom, boom. "Don't worry, I'm coming." And she entered the room, and she had this loose blue night robe, you know, which she wears every time one of us is sick. And as soon as you see it, you are not ill anymore, you know, you're getting better. And so she comes in, and I said, "Oh, I'm sorry, I was afraid you wouldn't recognize my knocks or think there was a knocks of some neighbor." The knocks of some neighbors. But amongst thousands, grandmother would recognize the knocks of her little bunny. I was hearing it. I was hearing him already turning, hesitating in the bed. So in this hotel, so you have to imagine, there is the sea, and there is some kind of an esplanade where we all stand because it is our place, the place where we go, we look at each other, the women have some kind of look at that, up. So we are a little stiff, but we are there. I met one important person in Balbec, which is the Marquis Robert de Saint-Loup. He's of my age, exactly. And actually, because my grandmother has a friend, La Marquise de Villeparisis, and it's her nephew. So he comes and we meet. But the first time I'm introduced to him, it is really strange because when my name is said, nothing, no muscle in his face moves. And his eyes are like two mirrors, empty mirrors. And all of a sudden, as if some kind of a mechanical reflect, boom, his hand holds on, shot down. His hand is shot towards me. And the day after, he passes me his card, and I had the feeling that it is for a duel, but no. Once these exorcism rituals finished, he became the best and the loveliest and the dearest friend of all. And one day, I'm on the jetty, esplanade, and I feel someone is looking at me in my back. So I turn, and I see a man about 40. He looks at me as if his eyes were coming out, of his. And all of a sudden, when he sees that I see him, he turns his head, and he looks at some kind of a poster, and he looks at his hour, and he's humming too. 30 minutes. And so he must be a crook or a thief or a lunatic. But Saint-Loup comes out with Madame de Villeparisis and Grand-Mère, and I'm introduced to the Baron of Charlus. Voilà. So, and he's a Guermantes from the famous Guermantes family. He has a strange voice. But the Baron, when he talks, it is like a voice of a contralto, and they haven't worked enough the mediums. So either he talks with a man's voice, and sometimes like a woman's voice, and especially when he wants to express delicate things. And his laugh seems to contain a whole boarding of young girls. One day, about young girls, I'm on the esplanade, and I see very far in the end a group of young girls, 5 or 6, not more, and they come, like out of the mist. They are blurred, and they are a group which is very, they are together. They have a collective mobility. So they speak very loud. They are dressed with sport outfits. They push bicycles. They have golf clubs. One of them is even playing with a diabolo. And they speak loud. They laugh loud. They are not like us. They have this mobility, incredible mobility, which we don't have because we are here. The problems of us is that we cannot express the mobility of our thoughts without anything else than this kind of gestures. Whereas these girls, they are incredible. They jump. They are. It's very, very. I'm very impressed by their freedom. So they pass and everybody looks at them like that. And I am fascinated. I want to be a part of that little group. I fall in love with the whole group because I cannot single out one of them. And I wait every day, so I post myself on the esplanade every day to meet them. And it never happens. We never meet, of course. They see me, I see them, but... And one day, Grandma tells me, look, the great painter Elstir has proposed you to go to his studio, and I don't understand why you don't go. This is not very polite. You stay all day on the jetty. I don't understand you. So I finally go to Elstir, and I leave my jetty. And so Elstir, I must tell you, is a painter. He paints what I see every night out of my window. You know, when the sun has set and sea and sky are blurred together, you know. You cannot see where the limit is. And it's the same with some earth. And it's exactly how he paints. He's working on a painting called Carquetuit, which is a little harbor near Balbec. And that's exactly what I see, you know. The town and the sea are blurred together, and the inhabitants are amphibious. The masts of the ships are like the steeples of the church. I have looked how he does, actually, to tell you the truth, because it's very interesting how he does that. So he uses for the city, you know, aquatic terms, and for the sea, urban terms. So I'm looking at this painting, and while I look at this painting, out of a window there, which is framed with honeysuckle, I see one of the girls of the group. She's passing by on a bicycle, and she waves at Elstir, and she says, "Ooh, she knows him." And I say, to Elstir, "Do you know those girls?" "Yes, yes, I see them every day." Oh, what a time I have lost. I should have gone earlier. So up to now, I become friends with the little band of girls, and we play together. We play all sorts of games, and we picnic also. So that's a very beautiful time of my life. Later, now I'm a little older. We live in Paris. Actually, my parents have rented a flat in the mansion of the Duke and the Duchess of Guermantes in Paris. So no, it's that kind of old mansions, you know. You have in the back the main house, and in the courtyard you have some shops that are remains from Middle-Age time, where all the trades were gathered with the overlord. And so in that case, they are all unoccupied except one, a tailor. His name is Jupien. The Duke, he makes as if the revolution had never existed. And he shaves at his window in pyjama and talks to you as you pass by. The Duchess, she's so beautiful. I follow her on the street. Every morning she goes around the streets, and I follow, and I arrange myself to be on her way, and I meet her, and I salute her, and she's quite flattered in the beginning, but soon she becomes annoyed. But I cannot stop to do that, you know, even if I notice she's annoyed. Actually, one person in our house knows exactly everything that happens at the Guermantes, and that is Françoise. Françoise, she looks, she says, "Oh, downstairs the Duke has brought some birds from the hunt," and she knows everything that happened when they make parties, but her Combray, she misses it. So she complains all the time. I hear her. "Ah, Combray, Combray, quand est-ce que je te reverrai? Ah, Combray, Combray, when shall I spend the blessed day under thy thorns and thy woolly oaks, hearing the grasshopper sing and thy vivant's sweet whispering? Not like that wretched bell from our young master. He can stay an half an hour without having me running along that wicked corridor. Alas, poor Combray, maybe I shall see thy only dead when they throw me like a stone in the hollow of the tomb. Voilà, ma Françoise. One day, Saint-Loup asked me to go with him to the suburbs of Paris and to get Rachel, his mistress. He's furiously in love with her. So we go, and we pass by some modest gardens with pear and cherry blossoms. So I stop, and I'm fascinated. And Saint-Loup says, okay, I see you want to stay and be poetical about this. So I go get Rachel and you wait from here. So while I stroll along the road, I see behind the trees young girls at their windows. They are reading and they have pink muslin gowns, so they seem like hanging in the trees themselves. And it's an image of virginity, of waiting, ephemera. And at that moment, Saint-Loup comes. He's with his mistress. And in this woman...
40 minutes.
Combien?
40.
40. And in this woman, for whom he spends all his money, he quarrels with his family. And she's all the love for him. In this girl, I recognize a woman that was offered to me in a brothel years ago for 20 pence. So I understand that Saint-Loup and I, we are very close together, very close friends. But we will never have the same point of view on that woman because we came to her by two opposite ways. Okay, I have to rush up. My grandmother dies. And when she dies, she looks like a young maiden dressed in white on her bed. Okay, shall I tell you Albertine's kiss? Okay, Albertine's kiss. Albertine comes to me one day. She's sitting on my bed, close to me here, and I'm going to kiss her. I'm going finally to know the taste of her cheeks, the rose taste of her cheek. So I'm telling me that because I think that there is a knowledge with the kiss. And I haven't thought that the human being, which is less a basic creature as the sea urchin or the whale, of course, but still lacks an organ for kiss. So he takes his lips, but... I approach my lips to her cheeks, and in this travel, brief travel, but if I write ever my book, it will be at least 4 pages. First, I don't see anything. Well, I mean, first I see a thick neck, you know, with thick grains of gray, and all of a sudden my eyes don't see anything, and my nose scratches, and I don't smell the rose expected, and my lips finally land. And I learned from those signs that finally I am kissing Albertine's cheeks. That's my disappointment again, always. Another day, I I am watching from the staircase of the Gammons Mansion, where I live, an orchid which the Duchess has laid at her window in the courtyard, with this insistence, you know, to bring out young weddingable girls in the world. So the flower is here with her opened pistil, waiting for the improbable insect which will come and fertilize her. When I see Monsieur de Charlus come across the courtyard, he walks and he is weird because, you know, that man usually he is like, you know, arrogant and susceptible and violent, like that. And this time he looks so sweet, he looks so kind. He looks like a woman. And all of a sudden he stops because he has just seen Jupien, the tailor, which he has never seen, in front of his shop. And all of a sudden, his attitude changes. He looks in the vague. He has a fatuous air. Whereas Jupien, who is always servile, you know, becomes arrogant, puts his hand here, and he starts to walk with his behind stuck comme ça. He starts to walk, and they turn around each other like a bird parade, and exchange a few words and disappear in the shop. I'm very curious, so I rush down the staircase and I get into the next shop, vacant, and I hear shouts as if one man was just strangling the other one. And you know, each shout repeated at the superior octave, you know, and then I hear water noises and a conversation. Oh, you know, I have 3 popes in my family. Why do you have your chin shaved like that? It's so suiting a nice beard. Phew, it's disgusting. What do you know about the chestnut seller? You know, not the one on the right, but the one across the street. And the chemist, he has a little cyclist. I see you are a Casanova. My eyes all of a sudden were unsealed because Monsieur de Charlus was very strange to me always very strange. You know, one day, I remember in Balbec, he had come to me, the second day, actually the day after I had met him. I was then a very young man, I was about 15, and he had come to me, and I was coming out of the water, and he said, okay, are you going to see your grandma? Your grandma, she's waiting for you. I said, yes, yes, and he pinched me here by the neck, and he said, but one doesn't give a damn about his old grandmother, little rascal. But sir, I adore her. And then he became very glacial, you know, steps away and said, sir, young sir, you must learn not to say sentiments, express feelings that are too natural not to be taken for granted. And adding a ridicule, an absurdness of that, of having anchors embroidered on your bathing suit. Voilà. So my eyes are unsealed. I go back to Balbec the second time. Now I am with Mommy because Grandma is not there anymore. On the first night, they gave me the same room, so I'm quite happy. But when I sit down to take off my boots, all of a sudden, I am invaded. My bosom swells with a presence, an unknown presence, which is, you know, divine presence, because I have just seen my grandmother, because she used to take me off my boots every night. And I am so full of grief I cried, tears flew from my eyes, and I realized all of a sudden that she's dead. You know, it's incredible. The calendar of facts and feelings, emotions never coincided. Never, never. And I've just learned that my grandmother is dead, although she's been dead more than a year. And so I am so overcome with grief that I cannot move anymore. I stay in my room and I cry. I make dreams. I see my grandmother. She has no more chin. She sits there in the armchair. And I dream. I go to try to see her, you know. So I go and where you know the souls are coming to you and see you, and it's very cold and it's very dark, and I don't have the address. I don't have the address. I have forgotten to take the address, and I say, but I must find Grandma, absolutely, because she will think I haven't thought of her for a year, and she must be so lonely in her little room. So I look for her, but I don't, and there is so much wind, and it's cold, and I see Daddy coming back, coming like that. And I say, oh, Daddy, please, tell me, where is Grandma? Is she well? Yes, she is well, don't worry. I want the address, I want to see her. Oh, no, you can't see her. They won't let you in. But don't worry, we have told her that you were going to write your book, and she was very happy. She smiled. Don't worry. And one morning, the grief is gone, you know, all of a sudden. And I want to go out. I want to hear Albertine's laugh again. And I hear the scorching beach outside, the bathers, the children playing. And I go out. And the first thing I see is a field of apple trees in blossom, you know, in blossom. So they are dressed like for the ball, and they have their feet in the mire. Okay, 50 minutes. Bon. So, Albertine lives with me now because I'm very jealous. I haven't told you that. It's something I share with Swan. Swan also is like that. I'm very jealous. So one day, they were dancing in Balbec, Carville actually, and the Dr. Cotard with whom I was showed me Albertine dancing together with André, one of her girlfriends, and he said, whoo, 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 the parents shouldn't leave their daughters like that. Look, those two, their breasts are touching, and we know very well that it's from the breasts that they derive most pleasure. And then became a cruel mistrust, you know. So I said, please, Albertine, come to live with me at my home. So she lives with me, and I must say, I keep an eye on her. And André, I ask André to go with her all the day and tell me everything they have done. I bribe the coachman who drives them. And Albertine, while she lives with me, she has become very elegant, and also her spirit has developed. So Albertine, I love to watch her sleeping, you know, because when I watch her sleeping, she's entirely mine. I can see her from all sides, and she looks like a plant when she sleeps, and her hair, you know, falling along her rosy face, falls on the bed, and she breathes slowly like that. And her pearl necklace is gently rocking from one side to the other. So, of course, I could search while she sleeps. I could search the kimono on the armchair and find some letters, everything she hides from me. But I don't do it because Albertine looks so pure to me. So I go quietly on the bed and I press myself against her body. I clasp her waist with my hand, and I am embarked on the tide of Albertine's sleep. But we quarrel a lot because I am so jealous. So one day Albertine leaves me, just leaves me. One morning she has gone. And since I have not much time, I must say that a few weeks later she dies of a horse accident. So I go to Venice with Mama. I've always wanted to go to Venice. And I must say that while Albertine, my prisonnière, she was my prisoner, of course, but I had sometimes the feeling that I was the prisoner, because since I had to stay in Paris, to stay with her in the apartment, I couldn't go to Venice with Maman. So finally we go to Venice, and I get lost in the canals during the day, and when I come in the evening, the sun is setting, and I see Mama waiting for me at the window of the hotel, and she addresses a smile to me, which is like a kiss. And the Venetian canopy over her head is like an inverse smile. And now, each time I see that kind of building, I have the feeling that he speaks to me about my mother, who is no more here. So on the way back from Venice, we hear, well, I received a letter from Gilberte telling me that she married Robert de Saint-Loup. So, no, Gilberte Swann, Robert de Saint-Loup Guermantes. Then the war, there is the war. The war is very violent. We lose many young men who have gone to fight, and they don't come back, they are dead. It's terrible. They even 55 minutes. So the war, during the war, I wander in Paris, in the black streets of Paris, at night, you know, and Paris at that time, because I didn't go to the war because, of course, you know, I'm sick, I'm my health. So Paris looks like a harbor, oriental harbor, like a setting for the 1001 Nights. Because you have soldiers of all arms, you know. You have Africans in red shorts, you have Hindus with white turbans, and so it's quite a city. And I must tell you that my friend Saint-Loup died in the war. He wanted to save his ordonnance, and he died. Well, I have no time to tell you the scene of the brother. Dommage. No, because I have something much more important to tell you, because, as you know, I've always wanted to be a writer, but years after the war, it happens that I haven't written my book. And even more, I have lost all pretension, all idea that I will ever be a writer. And this is clear to me because I go for a few years in a sanatorium. And when I come back to Paris, I'm in a train, and the train stops in the middle of nowhere. And there is a row of trees. And they are barred in the middle of the stems with the sun, you know. And normally, my heart should have felt something, you know, something warm. Because actually, since ever, I didn't feel anything. So I'm just here with those bad thoughts that I will never be a writer, because my heart has ceased to feel those things. So I go to a party at La Princesse de Guermantes, and in the courtyard of the mansion, I stumble against, two uneven paved stone. And something happens to me. It looks quite like when I was younger, I had eaten a little crumb of Madeleine, soaked in the tea, and I had felt the same kind of effect, which means, it was me and it was not me. It was me at another moment, and I had discovered that actually all my past in Combray had come out of that little crumb of Madeleine. And now, just the same, it was Venice, where I was before the war with Mommy together. You know, the Basilique de San Marco, the two, exactly the same. And I'm introduced in the library of the Prince to wait for the end of the concert, and two other sides manifest. The ding, the cling of a spoon against a cup of tea, ding, I'm just projected at that moment on the train with the stamps and the trees, and there was an employee, ding, ding, and also the napkin they give me, it's so scratchy, you know, like Balbec, a blue ocean surges in front of me. So I understand that the most important part of our lives lies in small things, trivial episodes that were forgotten, that were not used by our consciousness. An hour is not just an hour, it's a vase full of sounds, of climates, of projects, of perfumes. I feel eternal. So I enter the living room, and then, everybody has grown old, so there is something with time. But I feel myself like I am a giant upon time. You know, I have so much time under me, and each pace I do, I move all my time with me. So that's what I'm going to write about. That will be my book. My book will be about this incredible thing that we are all like giants immersed on time, and I will write a very long book like the 1001 Nights, and I will be in bed. I have to hurry up because my health is so bad, and the book will be very big, so I will write at night in bed, and Françoise will help me. With Françoise, will...